Hello and welcome to Why a Standing Desk Won't Cure Carpal Tunnel Syndrome and the Simple Solutions That Will. And what I'd like to do is talk to you a little bit about carpal tunnel syndrome and how it works and what it is and how to cure it. My name is Steve Maher. I'm a physical therapist and the founder of Site Solutions. And what I'd like to do is talk to you about carpal tunnel and standing desks. And here's the scenario that I run into quite often is I'm out working with somebody and I work with HR directors and facilities people, and they'll tell me that an employee will come to them and tell them that their wrist is hurting and that they want a standing desk, and if they don't get it right away, they're going to file a workers' comp claim. And what do you do? What as the human resource person or the facilities person, what do you do to help them solve their problem and save your company money at the same time? And there's a few options. First off, you can do what they're asking. You can just go out and buy them a desk. And a lot of my clients do this. They'll go to Amazon, they'll choose a desk. And desks can run anywhere from a couple $100 to a couple $1,000 depending on how you want to do it. You can call a vendor like Staples or Office Depot and have them put something on your desk, something they probably found at Amazon as well. But the problem with that is a lot of buildings won't let you make modifications to the furniture that's already there. And a lot of times you buy this stuff and it doesn't actually work, so you're kind of out. You could jerry-rig something, and we see a lot of clients that do this as well. So this person has put a table on top of her desk so that she can stand up. The problem is it doesn't really solve the problem. It just sort of makes another one. You can go online and look for an answer, and there's a lot of things you can do. A lot of people will go on Google, they'll look up ergonomics or ergonomic solutions, and you get a ton of hits. There's a lot of information out there. Unfortunately, a lot of it isn't all that good, and a lot of it is just bad. So if you see this person, they're upside down trying to work on their mouse, or here's this super gadget that's going to hold the person's wrist in a more neutral position. The problem is, I don't know that I could figure out how to work that, and I don't think it's really going to help. You can call somebody. This is the famous Martin Lesko. He was on a lot of infomercials back in the 80s when they first came around. And the thing is, who do you call? You could call somebody you found online. You could call your insurance company. You could call a vendor. A lot of times, though, those people are more interested in selling you their product than they are in helping you learn how to take care of your employee or helping your employee. So a lot of times, that's not a good avenue either. But there is a better way. Wouldn't it be good if there was something you could do to help your employee, your coworker, who's in pain, so that they didn't file a workers' comp claim, so it didn't cost your company a lot of money? And that's what this presentation is really about. Is what I'd like to do is talk to you about what exactly is carpal tunnel syndrome, what are the causes, why a standing desk won't work, so why all those options that you've been looking at on Amazon and Google probably aren't going to help too much, and what are some solutions that can help. So what I'd like to do is present my strategies for preventing carpal tunnel syndrome. And so what we'll do is we'll talk about how I look at it, what are the causes of carpal tunnel, how do you avoid those, and what are some things you can do. And then we'll talk about why a standing desk might not be the best option. If you can, what I'd like you to do is just turn off your phone. Hopefully you're not watching this on a mobile device, but if you could turn off your phone so you're not distracted, because it is really important information, and if you're trying to multitask, I'm afraid you're going to miss something. So you can just turn it off for a little bit. I think that can really help. And at the end of the webinar, I will give you information for a free ergonomic consultation. I know your time is very valuable, and for spending your time listening to me and learning about this, I'd like to give you something in return. So at the end of this, I will give you information on how you can get a free ergonomic consultation. So be sure and watch all the way to the end, okay? So the first question is, why should I listen to you? You're no different than, my insurance carrier or some vendor, right? Wrong. So my name is Steve Maher. I'm a physical therapist, and I've been doing ergonomic evaluations for about 20 years now. And the way that I got into this is I started as a physical therapist, and I was working in an occupational medicine clinic, and I would help people get better. They'd come in with a shoulder or an elbow or wrist. People tend to be categorized as injured parts, but they'd come in with an injury, and I would work on them, and I'd make them better because I was that good, send them back to work, and they would come right back because they didn't change the fundamental cause of their problem, which was a poor ergonomic setup. And so what I started to do was go out and look at employees in their native habitat, see where they really worked, how they really did their jobs. And what I found is that they didn't know how to set things up. And I could show them in the clinic kind of guidelines for how to do things, but when they got back to work, it didn't really work for them. They were afraid to do it. They couldn't move something. Nobody else had that piece of equipment. So there was just a breakdown there. So I started going out and looking at patients in their native environment and helping them work more efficiently and better. And so to get good at this, I went out and I took a lot of training classes and learned about how to be an ergonomist. And what I found out is there isn't a lot of good training out there. And so that's what I've been doing for the last 20 years is training people on how to do this. And in those years, I've taken a lot of classes. I've spoken at the National Ergonomics Conference several times. I've been a guest on the Ron Owen Show here in San Francisco several times. I've been quoted in newspapers. So I'm an expert. I actually know how this works. And what I do is I take my physical therapy knowledge, the knowledge of the body, take it to the workstation and integrate that with the needs of the person that's working there, but also I can look at different equipment and assess that equipment and tell you, will it meet that person's needs? And that's what we're here to do today, is to look at what is carpal tunnel, what are the needs of somebody with that diagnosis, why a desk probably won't help with that, and what you can do to make it better. Okay, so first off, what is carpal tunnel? So the carpal tunnel is your wrist. The base of your wrist, if you look where your watch band is just a little bit towards your fingers from there, that is your wrist. That is your carpal tunnel. It's made up of 8 bones, and they form a little cup, and then across the top you have a ligament that holds in the tendons that move your fingers. You also have then a nerve, this median nerve there in yellow, that goes to your thumb and first 2 fingers. And what happens in carpal tunnel syndrome is you compress that median nerve at the base of your thumb, and that causes numbness and tingling into your first 2.5 fingers. Okay, so when people say their elbow hurts or their shoulder hurts, it's not carpal tunnel. Carpal tunnel is a very specific diagnosis of compression of that median nerve. So what I've done is I've made training videos, and this is part of the training video that we've put together for general ergonomic knowledge in an office setting. But what I'd like to do is have you watch this video as part of that, and I'll show you in a little more detail what is carpal tunnel and how it works and what it really looks like, because you can look at the diagrams, the ones that I just showed, and it's kind of cool, but it's sort of nebulous. So this will give you a little bit more information on how that looks and works. Whoops. Now all of these things come together in carpal tunnel syndrome. Carpal tunnel syndrome is the most diagnosed repetitive stress injury, and almost everybody thinks that they have it. And my brother, every time I see him, he goes, "Oh, my carpal tunnel's acting out." I'm like, "Really? Where does it hurt?" And he goes, "Oh, it's killing me right here." And it's like, well, that's not really your carpal tunnel at all. Your carpal tunnel is actually your wrist. Okay, so the way your wrist is built, there's 8 bones right here, and you can feel these if you go to your pinky finger right here, and then you come down right to the corner of your hand, you'll feel a bump. And then if you relax your hand, you can actually grab that and wiggle it back and forth. That's called the pisiform bone right there. Okay? That's one of the 8 bones that form the carpal tunnel. And what they do is they form a cup like this, and then across the top there's a ligament. And that's the top of the tunnel. In that tunnel are all the tendons that move your fingers. And then the median nerve runs just on the thumb side. The ulnar nerve runs just on the pisiform side right here next to that bone we were playing with. So the ulnar nerve runs here just on top of that tunnel. Okay? And what that looks like is this. So here's your hand without the skin. So your carpal tunnel is the wrist right here. When we were doing the stag's head, this is the tendon that you were looking at right here. And when you pinch your fingers together, this will poke out just a little bit. If we pull that back, you can see the actual carpal tunnel. This is the pisiform bone right here. That's that first bone we were feeling right on the corner of your hand. Just on the inside of that, this green structure is the ulnar nerve, and that runs into your pinky and little finger, these two right here.
Next to that, you have the flexor retinaculum. This is actually a ligament that holds it's the top of the carpal tunnel. It holds everything in. These blue structures right here are the tendons. And what those do is those move your fingers. So when you contract the muscles of your forearm, it pulls on these tendons, and that brings the fingers down. Just on the side of that is this yellow structure right here, and that is the median nerve. It comes into your thumb and first two fingers right here. And that gives it strength, it gives it movement, and that. So what happens in carpal tunnel is you overuse the muscles of the forearm. That then puts tension on these tendons right in here. They become irritated and they swell, and when they swell, it increases the pressure within that tunnel, presses on that nerve right here, and that then causes numbness and tingling in these fingers right here. And so what you'll see is if you go to the local grocery store, a lot of times the clerks will be wearing those braces on their wrist. The idea is to keep their wrist straight so they're not extending it, they're not putting pressure on this nerve here.
So that is part of our Train the Trainer video, and that gives you a little more information about carpal tunnel. And I think it's kind of neat to see the bones and the nerves and everything, and see how that works in a little more context as opposed to just a picture. So what is the main cause of carpal tunnel? How do you get this? It's compression of the median nerve. So it's that nerve just at the base of your thumb. The nerve then comes up into your first 2.5 fingers, and the biggest causes of carpal tunnel are compression of the wrist and extension or flexion of the wrist. And I think I can use my highlighter here. So you can see this guy's wrist is coming in and it's coming straight back up. And if you do that with your own wrist, if you bring your fingers up towards the ceiling, you can see what an angle that is, but that cuts off the circulation to the nerve inside the carpal tunnel there. The other thing that people do is then lean on their wrist right at that juncture where your thumb meets your wrist, and that's right where the nerve is, and that will cause numbness up into your thumb and first two fingers. Okay, and then let me get back here. There we go. So the key to preventing carpal tunnel syndrome is to keep your wrist in a nice neutral posture. Okay, and so what that means is it's not bent up or down, so your fingers aren't going up towards the ceiling or down towards the floor. They're also not deviated towards the ulna or the radius, so basically they're not twisted in towards your thumb or out towards your pinky. So if you look at these diagrams over here, you can see incorrect is the top one here on the right, and that's showing the wrist in extension, right? Or flexion. The next one down is flexion. We don't see that as much where the wrist comes forward, but sometimes you do. So if you're reaching up for the mouse on a desk or it's too high, you tend to flex your wrist, and that can pinch that carpal tunnel as well. And then the bottom two pictures are the ulnar or radial deviation, so it's twisting of the wrist in or out. And typically we'll see people twisting their wrist out because they'll kind of flick the mouse, and when they do that, it'll push their pinky out away from their forearm, and that can irritate the muscles that run through there, but it also puts a stretch on the carpal tunnel nerve. That median nerve can get irritated as well. So really the best way to prevent carpal tunnel is to minimize pressure within the tunnel by making sure that you're working with your wrist in a good neutral position. Okay? Now, let me come back here. That isn't always fixed with a standing desk. So a standing desk, the purpose there is to allow someone to easily move from sitting to standing, right? So they go from a sitting position for a while and then they stand. And the idea is you're changing posture, you're changing position, you're decreasing stress on your low back that associated with long periods of sitting. A lot of times it doesn't work. It can actually make things worse for your wrist because a lot of these desks, the way that you adjust them is you crank them up and down. There's a little wrench that fits into the top of the desk and you crank it. Well, that can put a lot more stress on your wrist from gripping, and the repetitive turning can irritate your wrist, but also your shoulder. There's also a lot of times if you look at this picture down here, This is a VariDesk. It's a unit that sits on top of the desk and comes up. A lot of times there isn't enough room on the keyboard area for the keyboard and the mouse, especially if you have a different style of keyboard like a Microsoft Natural or a Gold Touch, something that's a little bit wider, and then the mouse has to come up here. And so here's your keyboard area here, and up in this area is where the mouse is. So every time you go to mouse, you have to reach up and out. And so it actually puts your wrist in a worse position. And actually you can see this picture of the woman working here. If you look at her wrist, you know, she's reaching down with her shoulder, her forearm's coming this way, and her wrist is actually coming back up. So it's in that extended position, and since she's reaching, she's going to tend to put more pressure on her wrist. And what we see is that people do this a lot. What they'll do is they'll raise the desk up until the monitors seem to be a comfortable height, which invariably is too low because we're used to looking down in front of us. We're used to looking where we're walking. What are we going to trip over? So when we stand up and raise the monitors, we typically don't raise them high enough. And so what happens is then the keyboard is low as well, and then you tend to reach down. So typically when you set up the desk, it's not set correctly. So without ergonomic training, the desks are typically not used correctly. And many of the plug-and-play things, they may work, but really they may work to get you up into standing, which is what they're designed for, but they don't necessarily make it better for you to for your wrist. And so it really doesn't do much for carpal tunnel unless it's used correctly. Okay, so what does work? How do you solve this issue with carpal tunnel if a standing desk isn't your answer? And the answer is to keep your wrist neutral and minimize wrist compression. And so the first thing you can do is make sure that the mouse is at the same level as the keyboard. So with that VariDesk, the mouse was so much higher you were reaching up. With a lot of keyboard trays, the mouse is on a platform below the level of the keyboard, so you have to reach out and down to get to the mouse, so you're always extending your wrist, and as you reach out, you then tend to put more pressure on it. So getting a keyboard of a single level keyboard will tend to keep your wrist a lot straighter in that neutral position. You might think about changing the style of the keyboard. So with a standard keyboard, especially on like my tablet, a lot of like the Mac products, they get smaller and smaller, but I keep getting bigger and bigger, and there's a real mismatch there. So when I go to reach in for the keys to get my fingers on the home row, I really have to twist my wrist, and that puts that carpal tunnel under stress. So what they've done is they've come up with different styles of keyboard. On the top here, that's a Sculpt keyboard. It's a Microsoft product, kind of like the Microsoft Natural, which is the keyboard most people think about when they think about ergonomic products, is they think about the Natural keyboard. What they do here is they open the keys up and they give it a little bit of a tilt, and what it does is it straightens out your wrists and then tilts them just a little bit to try and keep you in a slightly more neutral posture. And you can actually feel this if you take your thumbs and kind of put them together and roll your thumbs together so your wrists come together. What you're going to feel is your elbows come in and your shoulders tend to come up. And so if you let your thumbs come apart, so just your thumb tips are touching, what will happen is it will relax your shoulders and allow you to get in a more neutral position. So what happens at your wrist it's kind of like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. What happens at the wrist affects the rest of your body. So if your wrist is in a good neutral posture, then your elbows and shoulders tend to relax as well. If your wrists are in a cramped position, then you tend to try and compensate, and so you'll tend to tighten up and put more stress on the rest of your body. Down below is a Gold Touch keyboard. What this does is you can set the angles yourself. So the top one, it's preset. The bottom one, you can open it up and change those angles so that it's comfortable for you. So it has a lot more flexibility. You can also change the mouse, and we've had a lot of success with these vertical mice. And what they do is they just take the mouse and put it sideways. And if you look at the diagram down here, this unnatural position with the red twisted arrow, what that does is it shows how the bones of your forearm work. So when your palm is down, the two bones in your wrist actually cross. And so that can put more stress on your forearm. And the other thing you tend to do is lift your wrist back to grip the mouse, which then can crimp that carpal tunnel and put pressure on that nerve. With the vertical mouse, what they've done is they've taken the mouse and turned it sideways. And by turning it sideways, the pressure from the pressure you feel or you experience when you're resting your hand is then on the small muscle on the side of your hand. It's actually called the abductor digiti minimi. And what it does is it pulls your pinky out away from your hand. But what you're doing is you're putting pressure on that muscle as opposed to the carpal tunnel. And you can actually kind of feel how this works. If you take your palm and just turn it over so it's flat on the desk, what happens is your elbow tends to kick out away from your body, and sometimes your shoulder will actually come up too, especially if you have any limitation of range in your wrist. Then if you go from that position with your hand down, roll your palm up so your thumb's facing the ceiling, what you're going to notice is there's less pressure on that carpal tunnel, but your elbow will tend to drop down and in, and it not only relaxes your elbow, but it can relax your shoulder too. So for a lot of people, we've been recommending vertical mice to get pressure off of that carpal tunnel. Okay? And really the most effective way to prevent carpal tunnel syndrome is through ergonomic training. And studies have shown that ergonomic training can decrease an employee's risk of injury and workers' compensation costs. And it can promote employee productivity, product quality, and employee engagement. So what does that mean? It means that it makes your employees happier, and they won't be at your desk asking for standing desks if you know how to take care of them. So when someone comes to you and says, my wrist hurts, I need a standing desk, you can then say, well, here are some other things we can try first. And we saw somebody not too long ago, she had to file a workers' comp claim. She needed a different mouse. She filed a workers' compensation claim because nobody knew how to take care of her. And so they sent her to the doctor. They had to file a claim, a lot of paperwork, a lot of expense to get her a $10 mouse. And so having this knowledge can make a lot of that disappear and make you much more effective in your job as well. And the question is, where do you get your ergonomic training? Well, you could go to a university. So here in the Bay Area, San Jose State has a master's in human factors. And a lot of other schools have training programs, but they're engineering degrees. So you learn about product and how much force it takes to depress the keys on a keyboard, and it takes a long time. So if you are interested in engineering, it might be a good way to go, but it's kind of a long, involved process. You can do live trainings. There's a lot of places that do live trainings. We do some as well, but you can go to a week-long course or a 6-week course, or you can put a lot of effort into going to one of these courses. And I've taught with some of these companies and gone around the country and help them teach. The problem with that is it's focused on material handling, and so what you learn about is how to lift with your knees, don't bend your back, how much grip strength does it take to depress something. And so the focus isn't really on what you need to know. You could call your insurance company. A lot of times insurance companies will come out and do a training for the managers for free as part of your premium. And sometimes they'll come out and see one of the employees, but they usually don't like to do that. But again, their focus is on selling you their product, which is insurance, or they're looking at the entire policy. They're looking at safety training, how do you work a fire hose, as well as how do you handle ergonomics. So the focus can be different. And you could find somebody on Google. So back to the Google search, you could certainly poke in ergonomic consultants, and what happens is, who knows who you get. You could get somebody that's very qualified and really good, but you could also find somebody like our local massage therapist who has a sign out, free ergonomic assessment with every massage. So, excuse me, I'm starting to cough here. So you want to make sure that the training you get is apropos to what you need, which is office ergonomic training, and taught by somebody that knows what they're doing and has a lot of experience with not only the biomechanics of injury, but the products used to try and solve those problems. And this is how Site Solutions can help. I just noticed there's a typo there. Sorry about that. What I did is I took all these trainings, right? I went through all the certifications I could get. I went to seminars, I watched things online, I got training videos, I did all this stuff, and what I found is a lot of it's old, a lot of it's outdated, And a lot of it just is, it's too much. It's just blah, blah, blah. Give me the answer. Tell me what I need to know. And so what I did is I went out and I made an ergonomic training program for my clients so that when they ask, I can then give them this training. And then if they still need help, I can go in and see them individually. But this is the training that I developed for my clients. And what our Train the Trainer video is, it's a 0 to hero program. So it goes from no ergonomic training to being able to do a simple ergonomic assessment in one set, excuse me, in one video set. And what we do is we break down the ergonomic process into little pieces. So we go, sorry about that, I'm totally choking here and I have no water. But what we do is we take an ergonomics assessment and we break it down into the little pieces. I just took a bagpipe class, so speaking of Las Vegas, I just went to Las Vegas to take a bagpipe class. Most people go for other reasons. I went to go talk about bagpipes. And what he did is he broke it down. He said, okay, if you're going to play a tune on your bagpipe, how do you do it? And there were all these suggestions. You know, you gotta blow up the bag, you got to squeeze, you got to move your fingers, you got to march. You know, there's all these things. It's so complicated. Where do you start? And he broke it down to you play on the beat. So if you hit the beat, everything is going to kind of fall in line. And that's what we do with this video, is we break it down to the very basics. And the video I showed you earlier is actually a piece of that video. And what we do is we go through and we break up an assessment into the parts, the risk factors. We start with the biomechanics. We start with the biomechanics of sitting and how your body works, and then we talk about the risk factors that you'll see in an office. We'll talk about the equipment that's out there. We'll talk about then how to do an assessment, and we go through each of those steps so that you can learn and do it. And we do it in about 2 hours. So when you download the videos, you can actually watch through it in 2 hours. You can watch it for 10 minutes, you can watch it for half an hour per section, or you can watch the whole thing. But I broke it up into very simple, digestible parts, but explain each piece so you know how to do this. You have the information in the background to actually do the assessment. And really, what is the value of ergonomic training? And I was thinking about this a lot today, that the value of the training is not what you pay for it, it's what you get out of it. It's what you're going to learn by watching this video. And the thing is, a single workers' comp claim can cost thousands of dollars. I had some data on this. I think in 2002, the average cost of a claim was around $10,000. And that would quickly escalate if surgery was involved. And like carpal tunnel that we're talking about can easily cost over $100,000. And that's in direct medical claims and costs. If you figure in the indirect costs, which are time away for missed work, time it takes to train other employees to do this person's work, lack or loss of production, loss of environment, loss of morale in the workstation, those costs can be 4.5 times more than the direct medical costs. So that is a lot of money. That can be very, very expensive. And it's really a pain. And that's really the last point here, is the real value of having this ergonomic knowledge is being able to help a coworker who's in pain and needs your help. And that's really the best part of my job, is when I can go out and see somebody in pain and I can make some simple changes and help them work comfortably, because everybody's happy, everybody wins, and it makes me feel good. And so our video, what we've been doing is we've been selling it for $500. And so with that, you get the two-hour video that breaks down the assessment and trains you how to do it. But this is what I'd like to do. Since you've been nice enough to watch this whole thing and watch me on YouTube, and hopefully you've checked out some of my other videos as well, I'd like to make you a YouTube offer, because I think this information is really important. I think it can really help you, help your employees to work comfortably and safely and minimize a lot of aggravation and angst in your office. So because of that, I am willing to give you this offer right now of our Train the Trainer video for just $200. And what I've done is I've created a link. I've tried to put it in here. I'm not sure that this is going to be live, but what I'll do is I'll put a link in the description when I post this up on YouTube. If you click that, it'll take you to our website, and you can order it right there. You just click it. What happens is you will then be given a list of links, and you can watch those videos. And so that's what we're offering for you for being kind enough to watch this whole thing. I'm willing to give you a pretty good discount on the video because I think you need the information, but also then if in the future you need more help, you can ask me, and I can then give you that and help you with your ergonomics program. And here is what you're really after. Here is your free ergonomic consult information. So again, since you were so nice to watch this whole thing and listen all the way through to the very end, I would like to offer you a free ergonomic consult. So what I'd like you to do, if you're interested in this, is take a picture of one of your worst ergonomic problem. So it could be you and your workstation, it could be one of your employees. Take a picture of them from the side so that I can see them in their chair or standing with the keyboard and the monitor. Excuse me. Take one, maybe two pictures of that, and then send them to me via email at sitesolutions@hotmail.com. And in the subject line, put free ergonomic consult. Sorry, I just my throat. But just type in free ergonomic consult in the subject line. Send it to me. I'll review the pictures, and then I'll email you back, and we can do a Skype call. And we can do something like this where I can use the highlighter, and I'll show you where I see the problems are and what you might be able to do to make that person feel better. So if you have somebody that's at your desk asking for a standing desk because their wrist hurts and they're going to file a workers' comp claim right now, unless you buy them a desk, shoot me their picture and we can talk about it, and I can help you through that situation and save you and your employee a lot of aggravation and wasted time and money. And then I just want to say thank you for watching this video. Thank you for supporting my other videos. I have a ton of views on there, a lot of comments, a lot of really valuable comments, and I really appreciate that. And I want to thank you for watching this. And if you have any questions or if there's any way we can help you with your ergonomics program, feel free to send us an email at sitesolutions@hotmail.com, or you can give us a call at 925-377-0199. And you can always check out our website at theergonomicsguyblog.com. I'm going to change that soon, but you can go there too and check out more of our programs and see more about what we do and how we got here. So once again, thank you very much for your time. Please send me your pictures, and I'm happy to do a free quick consult with you. And again, thank you very much for your time.